There was a period in my life where I was trying to change. Not dramatically, not some big reinvention, just I wanted to read more, think more carefully about money, take my work more seriously. Small shifts, reasonable things. And I noticed something that made me deeply uncomfortable. Every time I spent a weekend with my main group of friends, I came back feeling like I'd taken 3 steps backward. Not because anything bad happened, just because the entire environment, the conversations, the priorities, the way we spent time was perfectly calibrated to keep everyone exactly where they already were. Nobody was talking about anything they were building. Nobody was reading. Nobody was thinking about the future in any serious way. And when I tried to bring something different into the conversation, there was this subtle but unmistakable social pressure to dial it back, to not be too serious, to just relax and stop trying so hard. And I loved these people. That's what made it complicated. Because the choice wasn't between good friends and bad friends. It was between people who genuinely cared about me and an environment that was quietly capping what I was willing to become. That tension, I think a lot of people are living in it right now and have no language for it. Let me say something clearly before I go any further. This video is not about cutting people off. It's not about deciding your friends are toxic and dramatically exiting your social life. That kind of advice is everywhere, and most of it is lazy and reductive. What this video is about is something more honest and more complicated than that. It's about the fact that the people you spend the most time with are constantly shaping what feels normal to you, what feels possible, what feels acceptable, what feels like too much. And if the people around you have unconsciously agreed, without ever saying it out loud, that a certain level of life is the ceiling, you will feel that ceiling, even if nobody ever tells you it's there.
Here's the mechanism, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Humans are social calibrators. We unconsciously measure ourselves against the people around us, not just in terms of achievement, in terms of effort, ambition, seriousness, what we think is worth caring about. If everyone around you works a job they complain about and spends their evenings watching television and their weekends recovering from the week, that pattern starts to feel like the default, the normal, the reasonable baseline for what adult life looks like. And when you start doing something different, reading instead of scrolling, saving instead of spending, working on something after hours, you don't just feel different, you feel weird, excessive, like you're taking things too seriously. That feeling is not coming from inside you. It's coming from the gap between your behavior and the group norm. And the group norm is powerful enough that most people eventually conform back to it, not through any single decision, but through the slow erosion of 100 small choices. That's how mediocrity spreads, not through bad intentions, through social gravity.
I want to talk about something specific here, because there's a version of this that's particularly hard to navigate. The friends who want you to stay the same are not always doing it maliciously. Sometimes, often, it's the opposite. They're comfortable with who you are right now. They like the current version of you. And when you start changing, even changing for the better, it creates discomfort for them, because your growth implicitly highlights their stasis. Because the dynamic they were comfortable in is shifting. Because of your change, they might have to confront whether they want to change too. So they push back, subtly, with jokes about you getting too serious, with a slight coolness when you talk about what you're working on, with the implicit message that the old you, the one who didn't have ambitions that made everyone feel slightly uncomfortable, was easier to be around. And if you love these people, that pressure lands. It's not some stranger telling you to stay small. It's someone whose opinion genuinely matters to you. That's why this is hard. And that's why the easy advice, just cut them off, upgrade your circle, misses the actual difficulty of the situation. But here's the thing I want you to sit with. Staying small to keep other people comfortable is not loyalty. It's self-abandonment dressed up as loyalty. Real friends, the ones who actually care about you, want you to become more, not less. They might not always know how to show that. They might feel their own discomfort when you grow. But underneath it, if they genuinely love you, they want good things for your life. The ones who consistently, over time, actively discourage you from becoming more, who mock your goals, who dismiss your efforts, who make you feel stupid for wanting something different, those people are not your friends in any meaningful sense. They're just familiar, and familiarity is not the same thing as friendship. Now, I want to flip this because there's another side to it that people rarely talk about. The problem might not just be who's in your circle, it might be what you're bringing to it. Because here's something I had to be honest with myself about. For a while, I was blaming my environment for my stagnation, when really I was using my environment as an excuse not to hold myself accountable. It's easier to say my friends aren't serious enough than to admit I'm not serious enough, and being around people who also aren't makes that comfortable. The environment is real. The social gravity is real, but you are not a passive recipient of it. You have agency. And sometimes the most honest question isn't, why are my friends keeping me back, but what am I using them to avoid? That's worth sitting with.
So, practically, what do you actually do? The first thing is to stop waiting for your current circle to become something it isn't. You can love your friends and accept them exactly as they are, and also recognize that they are not going to be your primary source of growth and accountability. Those are two different things. They can both be true. The second thing is to start deliberately putting yourself around people who are doing things you find interesting or admirable. Not to network in the gross transactional sense, just to expose yourself to different norms, different defaults. People for whom the things you want to do are completely ordinary. That exposure matters more than any motivational content you could consume, because you absorb standards from proximity. You internalize what's possible from watching real people around you do the thing you thought was exceptional. And the third thing, and this one requires honesty, is to ask yourself whether you've actually communicated what you're working toward to the people around you. Because sometimes the problem isn't your friends. Sometimes the problem is that you've been keeping your ambitions private because you're afraid of being mocked or judged or held accountable. And then you're surprised when the people around you don't support something they didn't know existed. Vulnerability about what you're building sometimes invites more support than you expected. Not always, but sometimes.
Here's the bottom line. You will become a rough average of the standards, habits, and expectations of the people you spend the most time with. That's not motivational poster wisdom, that's just how human beings work. So the question worth asking, honestly, without defensiveness, is this. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look at their habits, their ambitions, their relationship with effort and growth and the future. Is that who you want to become? If the answer is yes, genuinely yes, then you're in the right place. Stay and appreciate it. If the answer is no, or even I'm not sure, then something needs to change. Not dramatically, not cruelly, but something. Because the ceiling your environment sets for you is only permanent if you let it be.